Anthony Chan. He's former chief economist at JP Chase. Welcome as always.
Good to be with you, Rachelle.
So as we heard some of the language there from President Xi, what sort of tone did his address really set for the start of this latest meeting of the World Economic Forum?
I think that the tone is certainly one of global cooperation. This is the same tone that most economists and the same language that most economists use, because you get greater efficiency when you cooperate. Confrontation and protectionism actually reduces economic opportunities. And President Xi Jinping certainly is singing to the tune of growing the global economy much faster, opening the Chinese economy for other emerging countries and even for developed countries, which is exactly what most economists advocate.
And of course, COVID casting its shadow over this event and forcing it to be held virtually. We know that President Xi said that one of the most important priorities around the world is how to beat COVID as well as life after the pandemic. How is President Xi approaching that in China?
Well, I think that what you see in China is certainly that zero COVID strategy. It's a very aggressive strategy that none of the other countries are pursuing. But so far, where you see other countries experiencing 500,000 or as much as 800,000 new cases in a single day, China continues to have less than 200 cases a day, ranging from 50 to 150. So you would have to argue that so far it's been successful. Now, is there a price to pay for it? Of course there is, in terms of economic growth. But you just saw the GDP numbers, quite impressive. If China can grow at 8%, 8.1% year over year in 2021, despite the zero COVID strategy, that doesn't seem to be a bad trade-off for China. They seem to be doing okay, even though I do expect growth to slow down to some extent in 2022 in China. And by the way, so it will also slow down in the United States as well.
And we did see some other panels today on COVID, including from the U.S. White House, Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci. We also had UN Secretary General Guterres talking about vaccine equity. Talk about some of the key points around COVID and where the world seems to be headed in terms of this pandemic.
Well, I'm hoping that the world will be headed towards greater cooperation. President Xi Jinping announcing that he's going to be sending another huge amount of vaccines, another billion, I think, dosages of vaccine. China has sent out more dosages of the vaccine than any other country around the world. And I hope that other countries will get that message. The WHO organization is certainly supportive of that, to see that other countries, United States and Europe, also start sending vaccines to lesser developed countries, because again, we will not win the battle against these variants until the variants are under control all over the world. You cannot control it in one country if the variants have an opportunity to grow and in fact multiply in other countries because people don't have proper vaccination. So I think China is leading the way, and I'm hoping that the rest of the world will follow.
So that in terms of some of these other areas of cooperation that you might see, we know that President Xi reminded the audience of the importance of globalization. What would be some good starting points or places to grow in that global conversation of cooperation?
I think that certainly the reduction of tariffs, China, of course, taking that big step with the RCEP agreement. I'd love to see other countries moving towards more trade agreements. We know that Modi from India has already been negotiating bilateral trade agreements, and hopefully other countries will also join in and continue to move in that direction. I'm hopeful that the United States will also move towards greater cooperation, more trade agreements with other countries. When you have trade agreements, you certainly generate greater efficiency. China certainly is doing it, and I'm hoping the rest of the world is doing it. And I'm very impressed that India seems to be very excited about pursuing that path also.
And obviously you mentioned growth there. Let's talk about President Xi's comments on the economy. He warned against U-turns when it comes to monetary policy. How are those comments, especially coupled with the PBOC's latest move, received around the world?
Well, I think the rest of the world is happy because the expectation is that the Chinese economy will slow. It was an unsustainable growth pace, some would argue, in 2021. But right now, in order to offset that, they're going to spend more money on infrastructure. They're going to spend a little bit more energy towards relaxing monetary policy. And for China, that's the right thing to do, because you've looked at the inflation numbers in China. They do not seem to be accelerating in the same fashion that they're accelerating in Europe or accelerating in the United States. So they certainly have the opportunity and the flexibility to ease on monetary policy, while that is certainly not the case in the United States and less so the case in Europe.